Welcome to episode 144
of No Room for Phonies, Books Worth Reading.
So tonight we're just going to talk about the book Positive Intelligence, why only 20% of teams and individuals achieve their true potential and how you can achieve yours. And it's by Shirzad Chamine, and we are both taking his course, but tonight we're just going to do an overview of the actual book,
Of the
Positive
book itself. Yeah.
Intelligence.
The course goes into a lot more detail, but we'll kind of summarize the book.
So the premise of his teaching is that we are sabotaged by our own minds, and your mind is your best friend or your worst enemy. And as opposed to other things that we've kind of read about the mind and controlling your thoughts and, you know, that sort of thing, this kind of takes it a step forward and gives you strategies. So it's more about action and results than actually kind of just saying, okay, stop your thoughts.
Exactly.
Stop your negative thoughts.
Be mindful.
Be mindful. So it really is a very like strategic kind of a way
and
of
it's
dealing
practical.
with that.
There's a lot of books that you read and you have the book knowledge and you feel excited about maybe implementing some things, but then it kind of peters out. This really has potential to stay long term.
Yes. So what he's trying to get people to see is what we need to do so that within 3 years you could say that whatever crisis or issue that you're dealing with was the best thing that could have happened to you or your company or your business or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to shift the mindset from anxiety, disappointment, and blame to curiosity, creativity, excitement, and resolute action, and actually turn collective failure or bad luck or horrible things into some kind of an opportunity.
So it kind of implements a little bit of SMART goals into it because you set a 3-year time to look back. So you're thinking future, but looking back on how you're going to get there.
Yeah. So positive intelligence mean your mind acts as your friend far more than your enemy. And it's kind of an indication of the control you have over your mind. So how well does your mind act in your best interest and how often?
Mm-hmm.
It's PQ equals your positive intelligence quotient, which is actually a test you can take.
Yeah.
But we'll
we
probably
haven't got
get
there ourselves yet.
no. So
our minds can be our own worst enemies, and the mind harbors characters that actively sabotage our happiness and success. So those characters, he calls them saboteurs, and they have names. These saboteurs can be easily identified and weakened, and the muscle of the brain that gives us access to our greatest wisdom and insights those muscles have remained weak from years of not being exercised because all we've been doing is paying attention to the saboteurs.
So these brain muscles can easily be built up to give us much greater access to our deeper wisdom and untapped mental powers. And people, this is trying to get beyond the fact that people want to change, but
don't.
even when they seem to think they want it,
Mm-hmm.
we're resistant to it. And this is because we don't really have control of our minds. Saboteurs that he refers to are our internal enemies or our automatic and habitual mind patterns. They're kind of just the way we react. And they actually start when you're a child, and they're pretty set as to what your kind of main saboteurs are by the time you're 5 years old. So when you resort to that sort of saboteur way of living, it's actually kind of like your 5-year-old self is how you're
exactly.
behaving.
And there's 10 saboteurs, and one of them is the lead one, is the judge.
And it's basically about constantly finding fault. And then the avoider is the conflict avoidance, procrastination. It's not positive. If it's not positive, you just avoid any difficult or unpleasant tasks.
The controller, in this case, the saboteur, tries to get you to control everything because in your mind you think you're going to get the best results. But
if you're in control.
you don't need to control everything to get the best results.
The hyperachiever is about performance, external success. A lot of them are workaholics.
Mm-hmm. The hyper-rational saboteur makes you impatient, inflexible, and intellectually arrogant because you think you know it all.
And hypervigilance is the one that's constantly looking for danger.
And the worrywart.
Yes.
And the pleaser is always helping, pleasing, rescuing, or flattering in order to feel accepted.
And a restless is perpetual busyness, not ever feeling at peace or content, constantly looking for distractions. The story he tells about is about if this person was assigned to dig a well, they'd dig like 3 feet of the well and then they'd go, oh, I better dig another well, because they just can't, they have to just keep moving.
Yeah. And then they would, I better douse for water over here and start another well.
Yes. So then there'd be 10 wells and none of them would be finished. The stickler has a need for perfection, order, and organization that has gone too far.
And the victim is reliving in their mind the terrible things that happened to them and love to get attention for everything that's currently happening to them as well.
So the sage is the deeper and wiser part of you that resists drama. And basically then they describe...
These are like 5 skills.
Yes, 5 skills of the sage. So the sage part of your brain is the part that will explore with curiosity and an open mind.
The sage will empathize with yourself and others and bring compassion and understanding to any situation.
The sage will also innovate and create new perspectives and outside-the-box solutions.
The sage will navigate and choose a path that best aligns with your deeper underlying values and mission.
And then 5, the sage will activate and take decisive action with the distress, interference, or distractions of saboteurs.
So the sage brain is where we want to be, and the saboteurs definitely throw it off.
Yes. And so there's 3 ways to kind of strategies to get to your to have your sage brain be the one that works more than his idea is that if you spend more than 1 second in your saboteur brain, that you're missing out on the opportunity to be in your sage brain.
Right. Well, I don't know, just to think of an example, like empathizing with others and being compassionate. If it's a victim, they can't if the victim saboteur speaks louder, that person can't empathize with others because they're framing everything with how hard done by they are in whatever the situation is.
He said something today about how it takes your best qualities, your qualities about yourself that are great, and it turns them upside down. It's like this flip side of a coin.
Interesting.
You know, one side you're brilliant, you know a lot of facts, you know how to whatever, and the flip side of it is that you make people feel, right? Mm-hmm. And you come across as arrogant.
Right. So 3 strategies are kind of needed to weaken to get into the sage brain.
So first of all, you want to weaken your saboteurs.
By identifying them. Yes.
And then you want to strengthen your sage brain by spending more time there.
Yep.
And then the third strategy is to strengthen your PQ brain muscles, which allow you to move out of saboteur quicker.
So, and the strengthening of your PQ brain muscles is actually the whole part of this approach that makes it actionable and makes it feel real, like something is actually changing.
Yeah. So stress feeds and fuels saboteurs. But there are better, easier, and more creative and more joyful ways to deal with challenges of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
So the judge is the saboteur that deeply impacts everyone. The judge finds fault with self, others, and circumstances and causes disappointment, anger, regret, guilt, shame, anxiety, and that whole question of you feeling like, what is wrong with me?
Which immediately puts the brakes on any progress.
Right. So all these saboteurs have both a motivation and a style. So the motivation, there's one of 3 ways that a saboteur is motivated. Either to gain independence, so you need boundaries with others, and you want to be independent from other people.
The other motivation is acceptance, where you kind of need to maintain a positive image in the eyes of others and to be accepted by them and gain their affection.
And the third way that the saboteur is motivated is for security, and that's a need to control anxieties and push them away and minimize them.
And so right away you might think, oh, well, independence, acceptance, security, all those are all good things. But these are the saboteurs using that to sabotage you.
Yes.
It's using, because it's extreme.
This over-the-top negative way of looking at the world instead of... And then every saboteurs fit into a style as well. So one of the styles is to assert, to take action that demands the fulfillment of your primary need for independence, acceptance, and security.
Earn is you just work hard to fulfill your needs of independence, acceptance, or security.
And then the third style is the avoidance style, which is withdrawing yourself and your attention to fulfill your needs. So it's pretty, I'm sure that you could kind of look at the saboteurs and sort of figure out which ones. Like the independence saboteurs are controller, stickler, and avoider.
Yeah.
And
so they assert their independence by controlling, they earn their independence by being perfectionists, or they avoid their independence completely.
Yes. And then the acceptance, the people seeking acceptance through their saboteurs are the hyperachiever who's asserting, the pleaser who's trying to earn it, and the victim who's avoiding. Right? So,
Avoiding
and then
acceptance.
the final motivation, the
It's
security.
So the restless person is trying to get security by doing everything.
Right. The hypervigilant is trying to earn it by
worrying ahead of time and planning for the worst.
And then the hyper-rational is trying to avoid
security.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So saboteurs push you into action through anger, regret, fear, guilt, anxiety, shame, obligation, and etc. The sage pulls you into action through compassion and curiosity and creativity and the joy of self-expression and a desire to contribute and create meaning and the excitement of action.
So one way to do a quick self-test when you feel like a stress is to think, are you being pushed into this by something, or are you pushing yourself into this, or are you being pulled into something positive?
Yes.
And then you kind of know that you're in the sage brain space.
And the egoic mind, which is the collective term for all saboteurs, is like a giant snowman that melts away under the light of conscious awareness. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you are aware, oh my gosh, right now I'm being a judge, right now I'm being a pleaser, and it's not healthy what I'm doing. There's nothing wrong with pleasing someone. It's just when it gets to that extreme where it's not healthy.
Well, and it comes from like a 5-year-old who's in a situation that he or she doesn't understand, and they realize, well, if they do something to please mommy and daddy, then they feel safe, or they get rewarded, or they're called, good little boy, good little girl. So then that saboteur, that's where the habit sets in. But then when you're an adult, it doesn't work out.
No. So the constant in you is your never changing true essence. And that's your sage. And that's awareness, consciousness. That's all part of the sage. Mm-hmm. So the judge is the master saboteur, and it makes us feel negative and unhappy through constant fault finding with others, ourselves, and our circumstances under the pretense of being rational and reasonable and helpful.
Mm-hmm. Many of our inner torments are commonly shared. The most devastating judgment is that we are not worthy of love or respect by just being who we are. All humans experience that feeling of being judged.
Yes. The judge plays a critical role in team and professional and personal conflicts. We cannot focus on the other person's saboteurs. We are co-responsible for which version of the other person comes out. So we judge circumstances and events in our lives and find them lacking. And then we believe that we will only be happy when this happens, or if somebody behaves a certain way. And
it's never enough.
It's never enough.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of using our sage brain and making a decision about how we can react or how we can think things through in a way that it doesn't sabotage us or somebody else.
Exactly. So then he covers the difference between judging and discerning. So discernment is based on facts and observation and paying attention to the state of things as they are. So you need to activate your sage to figure out what to do with what you have discerned.
So the sage helps you act without feeling angry, blameful, scornful, disappointed, or betrayed, because those feelings come from the judge.
Yeah.
And the sage perspective says that all your distress is self-generated by saboteurs. So you activate your sage with the situation and you will feel quite different. So the sage has 5 great powers: empathy, exploration, innovation, navigation, and decisive action. With these, you can meet all the challenges and get the best results with the highest level of personal satisfaction, peace of mind, and joy.
So you first have to kind of accept what is. All outcomes and circumstances are gifts and opportunities. It is what it is, and who knows what's next.
And then he tells the story at some point about the man and the horse. Somebody steals his horse.
Right.
And he says, and they say, oh, that's terrible. And he says, could be good, could be bad. And then because the horse, I don't know, it just keeps going on. And all of a sudden he gets a new horse. So everybody's like, oh, that's great. Could be good, could be bad. Then his son falls off the horse and breaks his leg. And he's like, could be good. You know, so it just keeps going on.
And then because the son has a broken leg, he's not taken away by the army.
Which could be good, could be bad. Like, it's just a whole whatever. But it kind of emphasizes the point that we don't know what is next. And the sage activity in our brain, and the sage person actively creates what is next using the 5 powers. And every outcome points to the first step towards the next positive outcome. So they give a bunch of techniques. Like the 3 gifts techniques is where you look forward and you think of 3 scenarios where the bad situation that you're in can turn into a gift or an opportunity. So we can't control or choose much of what happens in work and in life, but we can determine the impact these events have on us by choosing how we respond.
And this is where you don't let the saboteurs change how you respond. You let your sage brain do the choosing.
So then he talks about the 5 sage powers
in more detail than what we listed before.
So empathizing is about feeling and showing appreciation, compassion, and forgiveness to yourself and others. So we need to give each other the benefit of the doubt.
And if you just think a little bit, like a 5-year-old might not know how to empathize. Like some do have that, but some just, if it's not modeled for them, they don't know how.
No, right.
So part of this comes with maturity, these sage powers. The second one is to explore, experience great curiosity and fascination in discovery. Think of wonder and openness and fascination. What more can I discover, and how can I understand the situation better?
Innovation is to invent what isn't, break out of the boxes, assumptions, and habits that hold us back. What is a whole new way to do this? And there's a power game called Say Yes to All Ideas and then expand on them.
To navigate is the 4th sage power. You choose between various paths and alternatives based on your inner moral compass. We need emotion and passion and inspiration.
And then the final stage power is to activate movement to laser focus action. The most urgent action can be taken by the quietest of minds. It's not frantic energy and it's not drama. So it talks about the sage power when you need it and what's kind of a little game you can play.
Yeah, he calls them power games, but I think that might come like from video game where you power up. So it's a strategy that you can use.
So the empathize sage power is needed when there are strong feelings involved and when emotional reserves are running low, and you kind of have to visualize the child and create empathy for that situation.
So you're empathizing with, I'll start over. So you're empathizing with the other person, if there's another person involved, with their child, or you're empathizing with your own inner child.
Exploring is when there's a need to discover more about what is going on before deciding or acting. And they talk about the fascinated anthropologist.
Which is observing and taking notes and observing more and looking at all sorts of different facets. Reminds me of the TV show Super Nanny, where the nanny comes in and just watches the first
Right.
day.
So she's being a fascinated anthropologist to see kind of what's going on. The innovate is the obvious or existing ideas don't suffice, so you need to think outside the box. It's kind of like, yes, we can do this, and what else, and what else.
What else? Navigate is the need to find alignment with deeper values, purpose, or meaning. And so you flash forward.
It's kind of what I was saying before, where you come up with 3 scenarios where...
what the future could look like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Activate is when there's a need to take action without saboteur interference, and that's where you preempt your saboteurs with PQ, what he calls reps. But I just
We'll
want
get
to
into
take
that
a
in
minute
Yeah.
just to talk about the difference between the survivor brain and the PQ brain, or the sage perspective. So the survivor brain has a fight or flight response. It just wants to survive the immediate danger, and it just narrows the mind's focus, and it lives in a state of distress and anxiety, and that's the saboteur brain.
Yeah. And there's no moving forward.
No.
That's why there's no like...
You're sabotaged.
Yeah. So he uses the metaphor of weightlifting and reps.
Wait, just the PQ brain has the sage perspective. So you observe yourself, you pause before acting, you soothe fear, you stay centered in the middle of challenging situations. You have that gut wisdom and you use it, and you have peace and joy and compassion. And how do you get there? That's where you're like building the PQ brain muscles.
So basically, he's taken research along all sorts of different practices of mindfulness and of vagus. I always say that word wrong. Yeah, vagus nerve stimulation to help calm the brain. So you do reps like you would do weightlifting. You do different types of repetitions of these brain muscles, and they're focused on 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And you do a 10-second focused on one of those senses. And you also do 3 deep breaths 100 times a day to be fully present.
Yeah. So, and even he talks about meditation, and this is kind of a form of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
The sage perspective and powers help us confidently choose to either actively turn a situation into a gift or simply accept it and let it go, because you basically have 2 choices.
Right.
So achievement equals potential times
positive intelligent quotient.
And then potential equals IQ, EQ, which is emotional intelligence, skills, knowledge, experience, network, etc. And every time we get into a negative situation, we need 3 positives to counteract it.
The negative, yes.
So then he talks about difficult people, and he says that we need to stop fueling their saboteurs. Don't be hijacked by your own saboteurs, and intensify your effort to label and let go of your saboteurs. And that's when you do these deep breathing, PQ, and all the other
sensory
10
activities. Yes, for sure.
Fuel the second part of dealing with difficult people, sorry, I jumped in, is to fuel their sages. Sages energize each other. So get centered in your sage and turn something difficult into an opportunity.
And both saboteur feelings and emotions are contagious, but so are sage feelings and emotions.
Yes.
So if you're coming across with curiosity and exploring and empathy, that can be contagious, and it might rub off on them, so that the situation can de-escalate.
So you can also help people discover their saboteurs by sharing the framework and their journey, and that's what we're going to get to in more detail next time.
We'll share our journey. And then put boundaries around their saboteurs if necessary to limit the damage.
Yes. So once you recognize what saboteur that other person is using, you can kind of protect yourself from it.
And just kind of on a side note, the saboteurs and taking the self-assessment, it's not a personality test.
No.
Even though the saboteurs come from our 5-year-old selves, or that's when they were established, we all have certain ones that are stronger during certain times of our lives, and then they can weaken with our efforts, and then other ones can then become stronger. So it's not a personality test where it's fixed.
No. So we have to activate the compassion of the sage towards difficult people because all stress is saboteur generated. So the sage focus on what needs to be done, but it doesn't sweat the outcome. You can handle whatever the outcome is. So positive thinking techniques backfire if they are learned without tackling the underlying negativity of the saboteurs.
So if you've heard of toxic positivity, it's because somebody's trying to force positivity and they're not they're not dealing with the underlying.
It's like putting lipstick on a pig.
There you go.
Leading, which is what we think the city of Welland does all the time. They don't deal with the underlying problem. They just keep putting lipstick on the pig. So when you're leading self and team, what do we need to do? And that's where we go back to this question. What do we need to do so that we can look at this current situation as the best thing that could have happened to us? Because that question is action oriented and helps us, to have a self-fulfilling process. And we can access empathy towards self plus daily. Like
PQ
if we
reps.
access empathy towards self and we do daily PQ reps, we will end up with a strong sage and a weakened judge.
Another, I guess, phenomena he talks about is the blameless autopsy. And that's where you become a fascinated anthropologist, observing and questioning and asking. And you don't lose your, I'm a beginner at this. I'm just learning. So you stay humble, basically.
Yeah. And then when the judge-free innovation says, yes, now what else? So he has all kinds of strategies to help you with, and much more detail in the book and examples. Yeah. He asks the question, at the end of my life, how will I wish I had conducted myself in this period, regardless of the outcome? So he wants you to get in touch with your own personal navigation compass. He wants you to be calm and ground yourself so that you're able to navigate situations from your personal, moral compass, basically.
Right. I mean, so you can think, okay, I'm just getting married. How do I wish I'll have conducted myself over the next 3 to 5 years of our starting our marriage, or whatever, or like for us, the second half of life or whatever.
And then he talks a little bit about deepening relationships through conflict. And he talks about how we all have 3 choices regarding conflict. We can avoid it and deny it exists so that it festers and drives a wedge in the relationship.
In that case, both people lose.
Yes. And then we can confront the judge or saboteurs and get a grudging compromise at the expense of the relationship. So,
so you think you might be winning,
but
you're confronting the judge and saboteurs, but actually you're still losing.
And then as the sage, you can embrace conflict as a gift and harness its power to strengthen the relationship.
So both people win.
And I call that respectful discourse, but others might disagree. The saboteur and then he talks about how the saboteur interferes in relationships. So the judge makes assumptions about the other person's intentions.
So when you practice conversations with people you're frustrated with and you're judging them and their intentions, it's not your sage brain that's working.
The controller intimidates others. It's inflexible. It shuts others down.
The stickler gets all self-righteous and rigid and certain about being right.
The avoider just hopes it goes away and convinces him or herself that it's not important.
The hyperachiever is goal-focused, and so we'll kind of sideswipe the relationship and just kind of focus on the goal.
And the pleaser will always accommodate, and the victim will take things personally and dwell on the wrong done to them.
To him or her, yeah. The restless person or saboteur will shift to more pleasant and exciting things to avoid the issue.
Yes. The hypervigilant will have a high level of danger awareness, forcing the level of vigilance unfairly on someone else.
Sorry to go back. The restless one, that just reminds me of that time that we met that person that we hadn't seen for 7 years because of a bit of a rift. And they said, "Oh, are you going to come over for New Year's?"
Yeah. And I'm like, no.
No.
And then the hyper-rational is just data and logic focus and can often make you feel like cold and distant. And they seem cold and distant and intellectually arrogant.
Then he describes the model of the iceberg of conflict, where you see a little bit on top and the rest below. So the part that you see on top is the position, the focus of the conflict, and it generates the opposition.
And then under the water, there's assumptions about the other person's intentions or needs, which can often be wrong assumptions, and aspirations, which are partially hidden to be discovered, that are also below
the water.
And so in conflict, the discerning sage voice calls a spade, but the approach is about compromise, selling, motivating, persuading, not pushing, pulling, and accepting rejection often shortens the recovery time.
Right.
The sage's empathy for oneself is unconditional, and true empathy for someone else means that you place all of your attention on them.
Pure exploration does not know what the next step will look like.
True innovation breaks out of the box that limits the way we think about a problem and its solution. The best solution might not be what's currently happening or even what's currently in your own head.
Connect the dots between your work and your own deeper sense of values and mission in the world.
So your essence, more or less, right? And then take your internal enemies seriously because they don't like to lose their power over you. We often end up like negative will win over positive. In order to stay positive in some situations, we have to work through those saboteurs. Those enemies don't like to lose. And so we need to actually take this very seriously.
You can't confuse saboteurs with emotions.
No, they're not.
Because the emotions, you have to feel the feels and go through them. But they're not necessarily the saboteurs.
No. So on September 30th, we're going to come back and we're going to actually share some personal experiences around the sage and the saboteurs and some of the things that we're learning more in depth about them. And then, that way you'll have a better understanding, and we'll share what the course is like and what we're doing. And so that it's quite expensive, but if anybody really was interested in doing it, then.
But reading the book is a good place to start.
It's a great place to start. So thanks for joining us for No Room for Phonies, episode 144, Books Worth Reading, Positive Intelligence.
Good evening.